I want to thank all of you for being here such on a beautiful day like today. Thank you to our sponsors, to all of them, in spite of the fact that there was no cheese trays. I know who's, this is an inside joke here. We're streaming live on City and State TV. I hear you, man. City and State TV. And I think that what's important about these events that we do is that it offers an opportunity for people who can't get access to these happenings, occurrences, and the way government functions in Albany, which I'm adverse to. I'm actually on a 24-hour pass. It'll be due at 6 o'clock. I got to get out of here. I start breaking out. But having that said, we do thank you, and I think the way that City and State has approached this on its multiple platforms is a way to inform New York residents in general, the 19 million, and those that have left the state as much as we can. I've met people who actually are streaming, looking to the streaming live, so this is an important component of this. So we appreciate your being a part of what we're trying to do and in the historical context on all these platforms. We're very bold. We think big. If you saw this issue and you got to, what did you wind up with, 3,000 words, over 3,000 words?
4,000.
4,000.
Kind of a long piece.
The man can write, but if you haven't read what this Cuba trip, the trip to Cuba by Governor Andrew Cuomo, otherwise known AKA as Che Cuomo, according to him anyway, he figured that in 26 hours he was, forget about Barack Obama, forget about the president and all the inside negotiations that went on. But Jonathan, you wrote the background of what it meant, and Jon Lentz, so that you understand why Jon Lentz was perfect for this. You're from Nebraska originally, went to Minnesota. From Minnesota, went to Cuba, to the University of Havana. I think you did 4 months there, right?
4 months, yeah.
And then
spring of 2004.
And then you went back to Cuba. He liked it so much. I think he liked the Cubans, not the Cubanos. I don't know about that. But it wound up that he's going back. He went back for his honeymoon. I'm giving you all the inside stuff. He was highly qualified. I dare say that among his colleagues, and I'm not putting them down, he's well-versed on things that are Cuban, and you saw some of the transitions. So tell me, your preconceived notion or what you expected to happen on this trip, did it happen? Did Governor Cuomo con all of us? Was it just a photo op, a long photo op? And I didn't say that, the New York Times did. Is it part of his political agenda? Give me a summary of what it is that happened.
Sure. I mean, part of that is just going to be wait and see. But yes, a lot of the trip, it was just 26 hours on the ground, and that included 8 hours sleeping. So not a lot of time to get a lot done. A lot of it did feel like a photo op. There was a tour through Old Havana that was basically walking from one square down one street to another square. There happened to be this classic pink 1950s Chevy at the end, strategically placed for him to look at it and get some photos. And
I'm shocked it was staged. Oh my God.
Right, but he did do some things that could bear fruit. He did meet with the #2 guy, a little-known guy, behind-the-scenes guy, the first vice president. A lot of people think he could be the guy that succeeds Raul Castro, Fidel's brother, who's in charge now. So he did meet with that guy, met with the Archbishop. They secured a few tentative trade deals, nothing really substantial though. The governor also really played up the idea that we're the first state to go there. I'm the first governor to go there. Well, technically, kind of, he is. There have been close to a dozen governors before this big announcement that Obama made that have already gone there, that have secured substantial trade deals with the Cuban government, which is something that we talked about. Cuomo didn't get any deals directly with the Cuban government.
I just want to interrupt. I asked Jonathan in the conversation of sort of debriefing, was there any of these events, did they occur in an actual, what they call el Salón de Protocolo? This is a protocol room within the government. I've never been to Havana, but I do know the people there, and I've spoke to them. And you tell me that there was no official presentation in a government facility, right? There was no...
Not in terms of these trade deals. That was just one-on-one with these companies. However...
They did occur in a hotel room.
That's my understanding, yes, right. But, any company, for the most part, that you're going to deal with is a state-run company. So, I mean, there is a government connection. There is something that Raul Castro has played up, that the U.S. has played up as well, this emerging private sector, the Cuenta Propistas. They've identified all these different classifications, tried to open up the economy, spur some growth. And some of the more popular things are running a restaurant out of your home, letting people stay overnight, having your home converted to a hotel, basically. There have been some steps towards opening that up, but that's still really restricted on both sides. Obama, when he announced this renewal of ties and took some unilateral steps to open things up, said, look, we can import certain things to these self-employed Cubans. Well, the Cuban government still doesn't allow that. You have to work with the state government. And so there's a real question of where is this money going to go? If there is increasing trade, is it just going to go to the Cuban government? Is it really going to help people? Critics would say, you have a lot of Cuban Americans, hardliners, that say all this is going to do is help keep the Castros in power. Again, there's another side of it. Governor Cuomo repeatedly said, look, we've tried this embargo for 50 years. It hasn't worked. Let's try something new. Let's engage. So I guess to get back to your original point, it really is a question to see, what comes in the next few years. Will the Cuban government actually open up? It's not just the U.S. embargo. There's also the internal Cuban embargo. They only want to give up so much control, as much as they have to allow money to come in, but they don't want to give up everything. They want to maintain the political system, keep it as it is.
Well, it's interesting because, again, I've never been to Cuba. I do understand the system. We function under a capitalist system here that encourages this enriching of private companies. That's capitalism. But yet, to understand this, and I'm not defending this form of government, that socialism or communism that Cuba has under the Castro brothers, which, by the way, it isn't one embargo. It's 3 separate embargoes. People just don't realize that. Antonio Martinez will be addressing some of that issue. I want to ask you a question about that because people don't understand there are 3 embargoes in Cuba. The original one by Kennedy. There's the Torricelli. And there's one more that I'm forgetting right now. Helms-Burton. Thank you so much. So there are 3. So understand that. But the fact is that the government would take that money, but the government is to supply free school from pre-K to university, full education, free medical care. There's no Castro care there, or like Obamacare. There's actual free medicine for everyone. And by the way, some advanced medicine that there is talk about having medical doctors go there for some other training. I'm not defending them. I'm just saying what, it's not enriching the Castro brothers as far as anybody been able to prove. What was the most striking occurrence, or besides the staging, which, Cuomo's, I know that sent an advanced person, and the person found out that they couldn't communicate by just pick up the phone. I just learned about that yesterday. You're laughing, man. So they had all kinds of flaws there. But what is the most, or striking, or more, I know what you said, what you reported, we discussed. The most striking thing about the way Cubans reacted, I'm talking, they did the walking tours, they tried to stage it. They look kind of stupid with this long sleeves and ties. How do? They never heard of a guayabera. That's my own petty thing. But how did average Cubans actually react to them?
Yeah, the folks I talked to on the street, no one really knew who the governor is, and that's not a surprise. They don't
know in New York either in some parts.
and Cubans don't largely have access to internet. That is still controlled by the state. You can't just go on and check
Sounds
whatever
like
you want
Albany.
to. So they're not reading American news by and large. They didn't really know who Cuomo was. They got the sense, okay, this is an American official. They are very excited about the possibility. They're optimistic that things could change, that there will be trade. There are really obvious shortages. Just walking around, you see there's this nice city center, Old Havana, that's been restored and fixed up. But just like you walk a few blocks out of there, their buildings are old and crumbling. And you get even further away from there in the outer fringes of Havana, it's very poor. And they have limited food options, limited clothes options. So that's very apparent just walking around on the street. And Cubans, even if the 2 governments, U.S. government, Cuban government, have been at odds for years, and you can speak to this, I think, Antonio, that they are very welcoming. They like Americans. They feel like we have this bond. They're happy to talk to you. Just really disagree with whatever decisions the president makes, the president of the U.S. Another striking thing, and the Times had a piece about this. You see a lot of American flags, on shirts, on clothing, just people with flags. It's a very striking change. When I was there in 2004, on May Day, they have this big march, or they used to. I think they've ended that. This big anti-American march, and you had thousands and thousands of Cubans walking down the main thoroughfare in Havana, and they have pictures of George Bush as Hitler with the little mustache and with swastikas, and so that kind of
well, that originated here, though, right?
Right, yeah. You see that here too sometimes, actually, with Cuomo. But that's a very marked shift in terms of the propaganda and the slogans, and it's interesting to see if that will.
You mentioned poverty. But is the poverty in a certain area of La Habana, which is where you mainly were for the 26 hours, or is it evenly spread throughout? In other words, are there affluent neighborhoods so that there's a striking resemblance that the socialist communism government is all bull, or is the poverty spread out so that it's equal?
It's largely spread out. In Old Havana, it's a touristy area, and it's a nicer place to walk around. And people that work there, I think, get some more money because you have Americans coming in and spending more money, get tips and things like that. There is also a neighborhood on the outskirts of Havana, Miramar. It's where all the diplomats live and a lot of the embassies are. So there are some places where higher-ranking party officials get to stay. But that said, I think they do really keep in check how much more the wealthiest person can make than the least wealthy person. They really restrict that, keep people on an even playing field. Castro himself, unlike other autocratic leaders in Latin America or other parts of the world, is remarkable in that he has not simply enriched himself, that he has lived a largely Spartan lifestyle for a leader, whereas he could, as you've seen in other, in Africa, in South America, people just taking advantage of that.
In the United States.
Right. And people talk about you have this sense of community and equality among the different people in Cuba that really comes from their political system. I mean, there are certain downsides, don't get me wrong, and we could talk about that.
What is the most striking downside that you saw, aside from poverty that is spread over? It isn't like some people live better than others. This is, we're going to spread the suffering, if you want to call it suffering. Do you feel that, did you at any sense get that the poverty that's shared among all, are Cubans unhappy? Are they displeased? Do they walk around with mugs? Or they walk around like, like some people that I see on the subways on the 6 line, that they're miserable and they're going to good jobs that are paying? I'm just asking.
That's a tough question. Sometimes it's hard to tell because how much can they forthrightly explain to you as an American? I mean, one guy interviewed, a Cuban guy, said, look, I really shouldn't be talking to you because if the policemen see me, I could get in trouble. Or, I can only give you my first name because you could conceivably get in trouble if you talk to the press.
The policemen being the regular police?
The regular police, yeah. I mean, one big issue.
So for just talking, they could stop the person?
That's what he told me, yeah.
But you didn't see any of that?
I didn't see that.
You didn't see a police profiling anybody? The police weren't profiling because you were black? You didn't see that either?
I didn't see that.
Okay,
no.
just want to make
But
sure.
you do see police around, and on every block they have these committees, and everyone's kind of keeping an eye on everyone else. Obviously, you can't just move from Cuba. There's a restriction there.
You actually have people in the Comité de Bloque, right?
Yeah,
so the vecindario, as they call them.
Committees de la Revolución, or whatever.
Yeah, here we just have the NSA who will eavesdrop on everything you do, but that's okay.
Right.
We're free here. We're free.
But going back, I mean, the state admission that Cuomo
I just want to keep a balance, that's all. I'm not preferring, I just want to keep it real for everyone. I'm sorry.
It was a trade mission, and there were some serious corporations, companies that went along that are really pursuing significant deals. You had JetBlue, they already do some charter flights that could transform into a real regular service at some point. You have MasterCard, they've said they're going to have their cards accepted in Cuba. You have Chobani yogurt. I don't know if that's gonna fly.
I can't see Cubans eating yogurt. I just can't. As good as that yogurt is, but I know we're going to wrap it up. What other striking, is there one thing that we're missing that you went to your wife and you said, hon, you wouldn't believe this. I mean, something you haven't shared in writing that you can, come on, give me a secret. Was there soap? Did you actually get to shower there? Was there, I mean, do you have towels there? Because we have this image of Cuba being so depressed and so economically deprived. Did you have any sense that it's any different than any other poor country or third world country?
Well, 2 points. One is they do have a lot of tourists from other parts of the world. It's just the U.S. that doesn't allow travelers there. Canadians go there, Europeans go there, people from other parts of the world go there. So there are nice hotels. There are places to stay. It's not just this poor place. And that was something when I initially went there that kind of surprised me. You know, oh, okay, there are other folks there. I think another thing that's striking is just how much they've maintained their culture. And it's, I think, a byproduct of the embargo and being separated from the U.S., that it's not just this American playland. It used to be this American playland. There were casinos there. The mafia guys would go down there and they could
prostitution, drugs, gambling.
Right. And to that point, one good thing that Castro has done is they don't have a drug problem there.
Or a crime problem.
You're right. There are a lot of vices. Again, I don't think that makes it okay to have a dictatorship.
No.
But the music, it's amazing, and the architecture and the culture at large. It's something that I think has been preserved partly because you don't have Americans going there and just opening up McDonald's on every corner and Starbucks, and I think that's one thing Cuba will try to prevent, and that ties directly into the trade question. They're not going to let anyone and everyone in. They're going to selectively decide this company is going to help us. It's going to be good for the Cuban people.
They sound like Republicans on immigration, but they would be great on the Republican Party here. But so you have a sense that at no point, as much as they want to normalize relationships, that the change is going to be drastic, even when the Castro brothers are gone, because they've lived most of their life already. You know, they're eventually going to die. So
right. I mean, this guy that's maybe the number two. There have been a lot of potential number twos that have come and gone, and the latest one, right? Yeah, I mean, there's Camilo Cienfuegos. Who knows what happened to him?
Yeah, we know what happened to Che.
Right. Yeah. But he's a hardliner too. So I don't think they're just going to throw the doors open. Even countries and companies that have done business, like Spain, they have a lot of partnership with hotels. But they're partnerships. You can't go in there
and own something,
buy property, build whatever you want. It's okay, you can work with the Cuban government. So there will be, I think, a very slow, gradual transformation. They will maintain control as best they can.
Which means that New York will be selling apples and yogurt when the third Governor Cuomo comes to power, which will be 30 years from now. Jonathan, I think you did a magnificent job. Thank you for representing city and state. You didn't embarrass us. That's how come I didn't go, because I would embarrass the city and state. But I think it's for sharing for this is great. I know that you have much more to write about. There's also, interestingly enough, a papal visit scheduled before he comes to the United States. Pope Francis is going to visit this would be the second pope that actually visits Cuba, and this is the communist, by the way, Catholicism has been allowed in Cuba. It's never gone away. There are nuns there. There are priests. There's this nonsense that you hear about religion. I'll tell you that because I know I was invited by the Catholic Church twice and by the Cuban government 6 times. I've never gone because I'd probably be put in a jail there after I say a few things about Fidel. So having said that, Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.